So whether you're in the market for a new or a used TW200, I think it's a great bike, and in this video I'm going to tell you exactly why I think you should buy one. So for any of my past viewers or subscribers, you might notice something a little different, and that is my GoPro right here. I decided I wanted to have another angle when I'm shooting these types of videos, so hopefully you guys like this, and if you do, definitely let me know in the comment section below. So we'll go ahead and turn this on. Hopefully it comes out good. I think I positioned it just right so you guys can see me. And let's go for a little ride. All right, so on the bike now, and the first thing I want to talk about is getting one of these bikes, whether it's new or used. So the T-Dubs has been around since 1987, and there's definitely no shortage of them. You can find these on the used marketplace or brand new still in your local stores. And on the used marketplace, I like checking on like Facebook Marketplace, or you know, you can even find them on like Craigslist or something like that. And they're gonna run you anywhere from like $1,500 to $3,000, depending on the condition and how old they are and how many miles they have. And for getting a motorcycle, you know, under $3,000 used, that's a pretty good deal. And when you're getting a bike like this, I think it's definitely something to be interested in. Oh boy. We got the squad here. I'm gonna pass these guys. So 3,000 bucks used, you know, 2,000 bucks used, whatever you guys can find. If you're in the market for a T-Dubs, I definitely hop on and offer, you know, anything under 2,000 bucks is gonna be a pretty good deal for this type of bike. Obviously, depending on what kind of shape it's in or the mileage. And so that's going to bring me right into my second point, and that is, you know, it doesn't really matter whether you buy this bike new or used. This bike is so reliable, you know, used, new, 10,000 miles or, you know, 1 mile on it. You're going to have a good time, and you're going to have a bike that's going to last for years to come. And, you know, it's just like any other motorcycle. If you buy it used, you change the oil, you know, you clean it up a little bit, maybe you replace the brake lines, make sure nothing's cracked or leaking, and that's basically it. So just how reliable this bike is, I've seen bikes with 10,000 miles on it and climbing on these T-Dubs. And for a little engine like the 200cc, or really it's 196cc, that's not bad at all. Hello, horsies. So along with the reliability of this motorcycle comes the maintenance intervals. You're going to be looking at 3,000 miles for oil changes. You know, valve adjustments are I don't even know, I think they're like 15 or 20,000 miles. They're somewhere crazy. And, you know, more than likely, most riders will never even need to adjust them. But it's obviously a good idea to check them when you do your first service. And when you go to change the oil on this bike, it is so cheap. I have done it once, and I'm planning on doing it again in the upcoming months. But it is, I think it was less than 2 quarts of oil. So around me, that's around $6, $7, depending on what kind of oil you get. So for $6 for an oil change, another $6 for a filter, maybe even a little bit less, to be honest, you're looking at 3,000 miles of riding and fun on this bike at least. You know, there's definitely guys that stretch that, and then there's also a lot of guys who say, you know, even though it recommends 3,000 miles, I'm still going to do it every 1,500 miles or so. And that's more like me. I tend to lean a little earlier than closer to the factory recommendations, but everyone has their own say in that. Alright, so we get it. The bike's reliable, you can buy it used, you can buy it new, and you're probably not going to have any issues with it. So the third thing I want to talk about is just how inexpensive parts are on this bike. If you're anything like me, you know, you're still in college, you're going to work, but you're not making a whole lot of money, so it's not exactly ideal to be spending a lot of money on a motorcycle and parts, and I get that. You know, I'm in no place where I can really spend a lot of money on parts, and a TW200 is the perfect bike for that, because you can still customize it and have a good time with it and make it your own, and you're not going to be breaking the bank. For example, the other day I was searching online and I found these plastics, you know, the front fairing, the rear fairing, and basically all the other plastics for this bike, and they were so cheap. I think they were like 15 to 20 bucks, you know, per piece, and that's relatively inexpensive. You look at some of these more expensive bikes, even like a CRF or a WR250, and you're going to be spending definitely more money on plastics and, you know, OEM parts like that. A good website to check out is procycle.com. They've got a lot of different parts for this bike. They're great prices, and you can find just about anything you're looking for. And since the bike has been made from 1987 with basically no changes, you're going to be able to find OEM parts relatively inexpensive. You know, if you're looking for tires or rims or, you know, even engine components, you can find them used or new just about anywhere. So moving on to the next reason why I think this is a great bike, especially for beginners, and that is because it's a dual sport. So if you're anything like me, when I first started at least, I had a problem, and that problem was trying to figure out what type of riding I wanted to do. So I started out on a Grom. That was my first motorcycle, and I loved that bike. It was a great bike, but eventually I wanted something a little bit faster and something that would, you know, get me on the highway, get me to school, and stuff like that. So I traded that for an R3, and then I moved to some Harleys, and then I moved to the Ducatis. So what I'm getting at is this bike is worth its weight in gold in the sense that you're basically getting two bikes in one. A dual sport motorcycle will allow you to ride on or off-road, completely legally, of course, and you don't have to worry about making the wrong decision. You know, you have a bike that can do both. You know, you can take it on a back road like this, or if you want to rip it on your local trail or something like that, you can do that. And that is really fun, and it allows you to really decide what type of riding you want to do. This being my first dual sport motorcycle, I can honestly say that I really like dual sport riding. I like the fact that I don't have to trailer a dirt bike or anything to a local trail. I can simply take this, go for a ride, and go basically wherever I want to go. As a beginner rider and a beginner motorcyclist, you might be spending a lot of money and a lot of time trying to figure out exactly what type of bike and type of riding you want to do. So that's why I highly recommend a dual sport for that. Alright, so moving on, and we're going to sway back to price for a second, and that is insurance. So I am 23 years old, and I do have one speeding ticket on record, but naturally insurance for a 23-year-old is going to be fairly high. Usually they say when you hit 25, I believe it is, your insurance will start going down, or at least lower a little bit. And let's just say on my Ducati, I don't even want to tell you how much it costs because it is a lot of money, but on this bike, I am paying $75 a year full coverage. And if you've done any sort of research on motorcycles, I'm sure a lot of you will agree that that is pretty inexpensive for a bike. And granted, you know, if I didn't have that speeding ticket on my record, I'm sure that it would be even lower. And obviously insurance is going to depend a lot on your record, your age, and stuff like that, but 75 bucks or around that you're going to be spending on this bike for full coverage, and that's a really, really good deal. You know, I paid that up front, I paid that at the beginning of the year, so I can ride the whole year. I don't have to make any insurance payments, and it's really nice knowing that I don't have to think about putting a payment every month or anything like that. So if you're looking at getting your first motorcycle and the T-Dubs is something that's on your list, I definitely recommend checking it out, sitting on one in a dealership, because it's a really, really fun bike, and you'll find yourself going places you never thought you'd go before, and that's what motorcycling is all about, in my opinion. Getting out, riding, exploring. I thought those planes were like elephants or something. That scared the crap out of me. So getting out and riding is what it's all about, and it really doesn't matter what you're on. At the end of the day, as long as you're riding, that's what counts. But being able to get into riding for so cheap, insurance is so cheap, you're going to be on a reliable bike that'll last you years and years. And also the resale value, that's one other thing I forgot to talk about. The resale value on this bike is great. So for beginner riders, you know, if you purchase this bike and you say, hey, you know what, this isn't the bike for me, I want something faster, or I want something a little different, you're going to be able to sell it, and as long as it's in good shape with relatively low miles, you're probably going to be able to sell it for almost what you paid for, maybe even a little more in some cases. And for example, my Harley, when I purchased that, I had a 1200 Sportster. That bike was a fun bike, don't get me wrong, but when I went to sell it, it was definitely not holding its resale value, and I ended up losing a little bit of money on that bike. But, you know, you live, you learn, and it is what it is. Alright, so I just pulled over for a minute just to kind of go over the bike and what I've done with it. I love the T-Dubs because you can basically do whatever you want with it. I've seen people make these into scramblers, supermotos, or just leave them stock like this. And personally, I like the way they look stock. They kind of look utilitarian, and I like that. So going over some of the things that I've done with this bike, and obviously this is, you know, just a couple of little things here and there. You can do all sorts of crazy things with these bikes, but I've started with the rigid LED pods up here at the front. They just help for at night riding. You know, I attach them to the high beam switch here, so no external switches or anything like that. Super streamlined. Moving on, I added a LED bulb here, so I'll show you guys. There's the LED bulb. There are those rigid pods, and it doesn't do it justice during the day, but at night you can definitely notice. So moving on over here, you can tell that I have added handlebars and the risers, and I have a video as well on how to install all this, so definitely check it out down below. So the next thing I've added is this Wolfman Enduro tank bag, and I just keep all my GoPro stuff, my wallet, my phone, things like that, and it works great for longer trips and adventures. Moving down here to the back of the bike, as you guys can tell, I have a rear rack. This is by Nomadic Racks. It's all metal, made in USA, relatively inexpensive, and it holds my Rotopax fuel gallon container, 1 gallon container, whatever you want to call it. And it's nice and secure, it's not going anywhere, and I really like how it looks. It kind of keeps with the whole utilitarian vibe. Moving down, I have added a skid plate. This is by Ricochet. Pretty standard T-Dubs mod. I think a lot of people, especially the people that go off-roading, will definitely put one of these guys on. Super simple. I also have a video on how to install that. And other than that, I have added the LED bulbs in the front blinkers, as well as the LED bulb in the rear brake. So moving back to why I think you should own a T-Dubs, as you guys can tell, the engine is basically exposed, so that allows for tinkering, it allows for modification, and you don't have to worry about taking off plastics or anything like that to get to where you're working. So it just allows for a good beginner bike to work on and learn the ins and outs of motorcycling on. Okay, so back on the bike, I kind of just want to go over my final thoughts on why I think the T-Dubs is a great bike, and if you're in the market for one, you should definitely pull the trigger and get it. So the bike has a 1.8 gallon fuel tank. It gets about 78 miles per gallon, so gas is super cheap. I think today I spent $2 and something cents on the tank, and I topped off my Rotopax 1 gallon fuel container back there. So with these rising gas prices, it's nice to know that you're not going to be breaking the bank on gas exploring and riding this T-Dubs. So the bike is 278 pounds wet. It's super light. I've heard a couple of people in my comment section saying, oh, that's not really that light. And yeah, I guess if you compare it to a full-blown dirt bike, it's not that light, but this bike is lighter than the WR250. It's lighter than the CRF 300, the KLX 300. So basically any motorcycle in its class, it's going to be lighter than, and obviously it does have a smaller engine, so you know you can expect the weight to be decreased just a little bit, but it's still 278 pounds is no joke. That is light for a motorcycle. And also this bike does have a decent amount of ground clearance and suspension travel. It's not the most that you're going to get out of a dual sport, but I think it's like 6 inches in the front and 5 inches in the rear, something like that. So, you know, for trail riding and off-roading, as long as you're not, you know, beating it up too bad, that really isn't going to be that big of a problem. And I have only bottomed this out once, and that is on purpose, and I'll show you the video right now. Another great thing about this bike is the kind of cult following that it has developed over the years. If you have any problems or questions about the bike, you can basically find the answer on any forum that you go on for this bike. There's so many knowledgeable people out there, and they've done all sorts of crazy things on this bike. They've taken them all sorts of places. So if you have any questions or problems with the bike, you shouldn't worry at all, because there's probably an answer out there for you. So those are my reasons on why I think the T-Dubs is a great bike, and you know, if you're in the market for one, you should definitely get it. And I'm sure there's a lot of other reasons, and if you guys have any reasons on why the T-Dubs is a great bike, definitely leave it in the comment section below. I'd love to hear it. But basically what I'm saying is, if you're in the market for a T-Dubs, just buy one. You'll be thankful that you did, and it's a really, really fun time. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and definitely let me know if you're in the market for a T-Dubs. But as always, thanks so much for watching, and ride safe.